Former Seattle star Jewell Loyd and former Las Vegas star Kelsey Plum will be changing area codes. The three-team deal sees Loyd become an ace. Plum will join the Sparks. The number 2 pick in the draft is going to the Storm. Now, the Phoenix Mercury, they shook things up significantly, trading for triple-double queen Alyssa Thomas. Phoenix is looking to reboot in 2025 after getting swept in the playoffs last season. And I mentioned Alyssa Philippou. Our girl reporting just this morning that the 3-time W champion Natasha Howard will sign with the Indiana Fever as a free agent, returning to that franchise that drafted her. But we have to get back to what's happening with the Mercury, because in one of the biggest moves in the W, Brittney Griner no longer in Phoenix. Instead, next season, she'll be taking her talents to ATL. In a video posted on social media on Tuesday, Griner announced that she intends to sign with the Atlanta Dream, marking the end of her 11-year career with the Phoenix Mercury. She plans to sign a 1-year deal with Atlanta after averaging 17.8 points per game in 30 games last season. Here is BG on the move. Griner is accomplished as any player in free agency this year and is a champion, 10-time All-Star, 2-time Defensive Player of the Year, and 2-time scoring champion. She leaves the Mercury with several career records and is in the top 5 in their franchise's history in points, rebounds, blocks, assists, and double-doubles. So, Chiney, Rebecca, I'm going to start with you, Rebecca, on this one. When you think about what you saw when Brittney announced this, what were your thoughts on the move?
My initial thought was that it's a really curious pairing with Brittney Griner and the Atlanta Dream, especially now that they've also added Brionna Jones. And the reason for that is the Atlanta Dream have a new coach, Carl Smesko, who had tremendous success at Florida Gulf Coast. And when he was at Florida Gulf Coast, he played a pace and space kind of offense. 5 out, spread you out, take a ton of threes. In 6 of the last 7 years, Florida Gulf Coast finished either first or second and made threes per game. So I'm really interested in the fit, the style that they will play, because again, he wasn't really a coach that worked around a dominant big kind of center who is going to take care of that paint. So interested to see what BG and Jones look like for the Atlanta Dream.
Very interesting what Rebecca points out. So how do you see, Chiney, BG impacting both sides of the floor for ATL?
You guys, you know when there's a big trade, we have to go to the big board. I mean, she is the biggest surprise of WNBA free agency, especially considering Brittney Griner. She's the second longest tenured player in the WNBA. She's a 2-time Defensive Player of the Year and also a 2-time scoring champion. And we all know how dominant BG has been in her career. I mean, take it from me, y'all. That woman is hard to guard. Guarding her, Christine, was a struggle. But you know I'd like to bring some numbers to help and explain. But first, let me show you guys what she does on the court. So on this out-of-bounds play, they're going to try to get BG into some space. So quickly, she makes her way to the left side of the court. Y'all, look how much space she commands. Bam. She's posting up. By the way, y'all, this right here, it may look even, but this is 6'9" versus 6'7". But what I love here is once she catches the ball, look at the eyes. Everyone is looking at Brittney Griner. Boom. All right, of course she's going to demand double teams. Double team's going to come. It's going to come too little, too late. Turn around, especially when you're late. You have to force the ball out of her hands. Otherwise, she's one of the most efficient players in the WNBA. Now, that's offense. Y'all, we know she's a 2-time Defensive Player of the Year for a reason. Defensively, watch this. She can play drop coverage. Typically, when it comes to drop coverage, where's BG? She's right in the middle of the lane. All right, here. A lot of people, when you get a look like this, you probably think, Derek Hamby, no shade here. You probably think, okay, I should shoot this thing. Nah, instead, everyone knows you can still get blocked, so she goes off the dribble. And then here, this is a good advanced move. Good players have go-to moves. Great players have counter moves. On that counter move, it was not good enough because BG is able to swat. Y'all, she gets almost 18 points a night. That is 11th highest all time. She's also, get what? 3rd in blocks, but most importantly, she has the 2nd highest field goal percentage in WNBA history. So, Christine, Brittney Griner is a walking bucket. Look at those numbers, .562 career field goal percentage, and that is walking into Atlanta. And lastly, I'll say this. How will the fit work? A lot of people have played against the Atlanta Dream, and they like to run and gun. They like to go fast. BG, she's efficient. I think she can keep up. Unrivaled is a good example. It's 3-on-3, so I think she's getting a taste of what it's like. They have 3-level scorers in Ryan Howard at the 1, Alicia Gray at the wing, and now you have BG in the center. They are absolutely loaded.
It's going to be very weird seeing her in an ATL jersey, but I think the other thing to point out, you mentioned that she's one of the longest tenured players in the WNBA. Also, the veteran leadership that she's going to be bringing to that ATL team is going to be huge. Let's toss it over to our reporters roundtable as they break this down a little bit more.
Well, so we talk about BG leaving Phoenix. It seems like yesterday the big three built around Diana Taurasi, Brittney Griner, Skylar Diggins-Smith. Well, likely they're all gone. We're still waiting to hear about Diana. She might be teasing us a little. Is she really, truly done? We'll never say never till she tells us for sure. But this is a big hole now for Phoenix, and I think that it's really interesting. Alyssa Thomas comes there, but they have been trying for the last couple of years to put all of their eggs in a certain basket, preparing for when Diana Taurasi retires. And I know they've been wanting to go all in on Satou Sabally. So how do we see Phoenix trying to fill out their roster now, depending on if they get Satou or if they don't?
Well, yes, it's a big, I guess we could say like a unicorn-sized question that is looming in Phoenix. But yes, Satou Sabally has met with Phoenix, and she's met with New York. So there's a decision there for her to make, and that's really going to broadly determine which direction the Mercury go. Now, DeWanna Bonner's a player that could also be in the mix for the Mercury to get, especially with her fiance Alyssa Thomas now joining the team via trade. So I do think with Alyssa Thomas, you're going to have a player that can do so many things on the floor. You're building in a way around her, but the Satou question is going to determine a lot of things moving forward too.
And BG, she took meetings. She became a free agent. What do you know about BG's plan?
Listen, the Phoenix Mercury just had a conversation in terms of how they wanted to play basketball-wise that Brittney felt was not going to necessarily be focused on her. And I think that's where she decided to open up free agency in a way that, you know, it was an amicable parting, but she feels very loved and appreciated by the Atlanta Dream. She had a meeting with Carl Smesco, and Rebecca pointed out the right thing. He's never played this way. But he's also never had a player like Brittney Griner. And in that meeting, Coach Smesco said to her, listen, I've never had anyone like you. We can adjust our system. We can adjust how we play because we have you now. And that Brittney was comfortable with the way they were going to adjust how they play. And it's good to feel wanted.
It is time to dig into this mega deal. Now, this was a highly calculated shakeup. Let's break it down, starting with Jewell Loyd heading to Las Vegas. Now, we all know Jewell Loyd is one of the best scorers in the WNBA. Volume shooter with championship pedigree. She has the, check this out, 4th highest points per game over the last 4 seasons at around, 19.8 points per game. Again, 4th in the WNBA during this span. Gold Mamba, she definitely gets buckets. So let's look at how she gets it done on the court. Okay, here we go. She is a bucket getter here. She's got Sophie Cunningham on her. That's like, 2-inch difference, a little hezzy. Okay, tough mid-range, my favorite words in basketball, and one son. That's what she's able to do, but she's also, we all know, Mamba for a reason, a clutch shot maker. This is Dejanay, y'all, Defensive Player of the Year. So her ability there is gonna be huge, especially considering that Jewell Loyd is in because Kelsey Plum is out. So let's head over to where we are, Los Angeles. Their new star guard is one of the best 3-point snipers in the W. She has made 362 threes, which is the 3rd most in the last 4 seasons. Plum, one thing I like about her, though, we talk a lot about the threes, but she's also a playmaker. That's what happens when you play with Asia, when you play with Jackie, when you play with Chelsea. You find your teammates. She will need to do so, especially in Los Angeles. And we all know this is her bread and butter, though. 3-point specialist. I've heard some stories about Plum. She be in the gym shooting that thing.
I can imagine,
You know, and she shoots for a long time. She's one of the hardest workers in the WNBA. And to get Plum, the Los Angeles Sparks, they had a very tough decision to make. So now to complete, our situation, now they have to build around young stars in Cameron Brink and Rickea Jackson, but they also had a decision. Do they want to get to the playoffs? That's why they got Plum. That allowed, though, the Seattle Storm to get the number 2 pick. So, assuming that Paige Beckers goes first, that leaves the Storm with their choice of some goodies. Olivia Miles, y'all see, I saw her in person here in LA, yo. That girl is dangerous. We also have, of course, Kiki Iriafen. Talk about this city. She's fantastic as well. And do not sleep on the internationals. Dominique Malonga from France. I saw this video at 16 years old, a dunker, a future. People compare, I hate to do like the different league comparisons. They're saying things like shades of Wemby.
Oh, wow.
for Dominique. So yeah, that is breaking down one of the biggest trades we've ever seen in WNBA history, and everyone in some ways came up a winner.
It's just hurting me a little bit to not see Kelsey in an Aces jersey and not see Jewell in a Storm jersey. It's going to be so different.
You're going to be fine. You're going to be all right.
It's going to be crazy. Okay, let's talk to our reporters to talk about it a little bit more.
But what they both bring to their new franchise is championship pedigree. And the sources I spoke to in Los Angeles, they said Kelsey Plum had very specific questions as she was asking about what the vision was for her in LA. She wants to win now. She brings that dog mentality that will transform their very young roster. And I know that you really believe Kelsey Plum's a great fit for LA.
Yeah, and I think for her, this idea, they are hoping mutually that this is a long-term partnership beyond just 2025. I know it's a little confusing because these players are technically on one-year deals, but the ideal is that she can stay in LA. They can build something special with Rickea Jackson, with Cameron Brink, and with her friend Yerika Hamby too. So that's something that is really exciting in LA. And I think also Kelsey Plum could maybe help attract some free agents.
Well, they're finally going to invest a major sum of money, from what I understand, in building a new practice facility. I know Chiney is listening to me over there saying, I remember where we used to practice.
I needed them ice baths.
Doing your colleges. Finally, they're going to make a big announcement in the next couple weeks here about where that's going to be, the exact location. But finally, the Los Angeles Sparks are going to invest in this team and invest in the infrastructure around them.
And I believe that ownership has invested. They have gotten a superstar coach in Lynn Roberts. They've committed to her long term. And they are still going to be very active in the free agent market. We're going to see some big names coming to LA maybe in the next couple of days. That's a little teaser, but we're still waiting for the Satu domino that could impact those trades. I quickly wanted to say this about Seattle. Sources there are very optimistic that they could re-sign Nneka Ogwumike. I know her sister's on the set, so we'll leave her to break any news. And Gabby Williams, don't forget Gabby, maybe the most important free agent this summer, coming off her star shining in the French Olympics. So I think that we need to keep in mind that she's been cored. Seattle has Skylar Diggins-Smith. They are building some really great pieces to go along with that #2 pick. So Seattle, sky's looking great, and they've got their new practice facility.
Well,
it's built. It's already built.
If you let's go back to the Aces too. It's like for them to get Jewell Loyd in this spot. I mean, that's a whole new super team there. They also met with Brittney Griner in free agency. She chose to go to Atlanta instead of going to the Aces, and they're still trying to land another big alongside A'ja Wilson. So they're not done yet either.
The 2024 draft class was star-studded and exceeded the hype. Caitlin Clark was the top pick and had one of the most prolific rookie years ever. Clark won Rookie of the Year and set rookie records for points, assists, and triple doubles. Now over in Chicago, the Skyscrapers tandem of Angel Reese and Camila Cardoso did some serious work in the paint. Reese set the WNBA single season rebound per game mark with over 13. The duo had 4 games where each posted double doubles. That is a WNBA rookie record. And right around the corner from us, in downtown LA, the Sparks had their own stellar rookie duo with Rickea Jackson and Cameron Brink. Brink was a shot blocking force before her season ending injury, and Jackson scored the second most points by a rookie in team history. So we know the rookie showed out. Caitlin Clark led the Fever to the playoffs for the first time since 2016. Clark now gets Kelsey Mitchell back. And today we got news that Natasha Howard will be with the Fever. So Rebecca, do you think that the Fever, big question here, are they title contenders?
I think they're one piece away. I think they're one piece away from being a title contender. I think adding Natasha Howard puts them potentially in the top 4. Now, if they could sign, say, Nneka Ogwumike or Satu Sabally or even Dewana Bonner, I would put them in the championship conversation. But they haven't done that. But they have certainly improved by signing Howard. She, to me, fits their system beautifully as a rim-running stretch 4. We know Caitlin Clark is the best get-ahead passer in the WNBA right now. Howard will run the floor. Howard is outstanding in the pick and roll. We saw how good she was doing that when she was in Seattle. What else does she bring? A massive amount of experience. Remember, all the conversation for Indiana going into the playoffs last year, first time they'd made it since 2016, was how little playoff experience they had. You see, now they have 33 games. In that first playoff game against the Connecticut Sun this past season, they had 0 playoff experience from their starting 5. Howard brings playoff experience. She's won 3 championships with both Minnesota and Seattle. So to me, she's a huge, huge piece for them. But in terms of a championship, I think they're still one piece away.
Okay, one piece away, but that's still huge thinking about how long it had been since they made it to the playoffs. So how dangerous is this Fever lineup, Jeanette?
I have to get up because we got to give the people what they want. This was a game-changing move, and I agree with Rebecca. They are still a little bit away. They finally made it back to the playoffs, but to be a championship team, they might need one more piece. But let's dive into this Indiana Fever roster, starting with their backcourt. I want you guys to look right here. This backcourt, I'm not gonna lie, y'all, is lit. You've got Caitlin Clark, who made history, right? I'll get to her later. But Kelsey Mitchell just made a choice to re-sign. She averaged 19 points per game, and she's electric. I love her ability as a scorer. So this was a big win already for the Fever. Now, when we look back at this lineup, now let's talk about the post players. Aaliyah Boston, you got two right here, rookies of the year. Aaliyah Boston, I mean, she's a walking double-double, right? So important for them. They also have depth, hopefully retaining Melissa Smith. And if you look at this, when we go to the post position, as we rotate around, we could even potentially see some depth here with Natasha Howard, averaged 17.6 points per game in her heyday, and also, most importantly, 11 points per game when it comes to the paint. So she is really good at running the rim and also providing depth at the post position. But they could go big. I hope this works. This is what will be scary for the league. If they decide to have a lineup like this, you got Alyssa, you got Boston, you got Natasha, you got Kelsey, and then you got Caitlin Clark. And speaking of which, when we talk about Caitlin Clark, everybody knows her name and everyone knows her game, but you need players that can really shoot the ball and really finish for her to make history. She already did it last year, as you can know, with her passing, right? Set a WNBA record in assists, but I just cannot wait to see what else she has in store. Because one thing we know about Caitlin, she be lurking. She be going to, like, she goes to sports events, but we know she stays in the gym working on her game. So I'm very excited with the move so far that Steph White has made with her roster.
We now welcome in our basketball reporter, Kendra Andrews. So Kendra, we've been very jealous because you spent a lot of time down in Miami covering Unrivaled for us. What can you tell us about how that league is having an impact on the WNBA and free agency?
Yeah, Christine, I think Ramona said it at the top of our show. Next year, we should have our show out in Miami because that's where a lot of these conversations are happening. The players, it's kind of like the WNBA bubble where they're all just so intertwined. They can have really, really blunt conversations. Satu Sabali, a huge talking point for us today. She told me, I can ask the most honest questions here and get the answers I'm looking for from my peers, whether that's what kind of resources does this team have? What's your facility like? What kind of investments are your owners making in this team? And she said, I can really form my opinions and answers based on the honest truth. And then, of course, we have a lot of recruiting. Sabrina Ionescu said, yeah, I'm going to be taking Satu out for coffee. And Brianna Stewart told me she could look good in that New York teal. And now we see that the Liberty are really in play for Sabali. So a lot of those conversations are happening in Miami for sure.
And we talked earlier this week, me and Kendra, about what Satu wanted. And she wants a nice arena. She wants the facilities. And talking to New York and figuring out what they have up there is very important for that conversation. You're also locked in with the Golden State Valkyries. What is their approach to this free agency period?
Yeah, Christine, the Valkyries entered this free agency really feeling that they were a desirable destination for free agents, and they were hoping to build out their roster through this period, but we're a couple weeks in and they haven't made any moves. You know, they've made pushes for names like Kelsey Plum, like Courtney Vandersloot, Brianna Jones, but they haven't been able to land anyone. Now, their hands, they're a little bit tied just in terms of when it comes to core players. They don't right now have the assets to make strong trade packages to get those players onto their team. And they're also a little frustrated that they have the 5th pick in the draft instead of something higher. So their options are just a little bit limited of what they can do. So right now they're kind of at this, let's say acceptance point where we might not be the most competitive team in our inaugural year. So let's just focus on getting in the game, getting our franchise up and running. And then 2026, right, when everyone is a free agent, we can make a lot of moves then.
All right, very excited to see what Natalie Nakase does with this squad. Thank you so much, Kendra. So here's what we know at the moment. The big dominoes have started to come off the board. Jewell Loyd, Kelsey Plum, Alyssa Thomas, all changing teams via trade. Perhaps the most shocking move is BG to Atlanta and Natasha Howard heading back to the Fever. But what we are still waiting for is the unicorn sighting with Satu Sabali. We're back with the entire squad. Everybody at the desk right now. So a lot has happened. We've gone through a lot, guys. We're throwing everything at you guys.
Wait until next year.
So, Chiney, when you think about the biggest, I know it's insane. When you think about the biggest free agent that is still available, who do you think that is?
That has to be Satu, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. Satu Sabali for obvious reasons. Yeah.
Okay.
I'm going to throw out there Dewana Bonner. Everybody I talked to said that she has had a lot of different suitors. I do think Satu's the biggest, but Dewana Bonner is somebody not to sleep on. She is a WNBA champion. She's got championship pedigree. She's somebody that a lot of people are interviewing and talking to.
I do have a little bit of little news in terms of free agency for a few other teams. Natisha Heidemann was a highly sought after free agent, bringing that point guard experience. She's actually expected to stay in Minnesota, which is really exciting for the WNBA finalists. Mariam Badian is someone, I don't know if I got the French perfectly right. Holly would probably know better than I would. She's expected to also be coming over for the Lynx too, so they'll have a little bit more depth in the front court as well. But they're a team that didn't want to make any major changes to because of how well that chemistry worked on that Lynx squad. Keep an eye on Chicago. I'll just say they're entertaining offers to maybe trade that number 3 pick if they get the right deal. They want to surround Courtney Vandersloot with the right talent to really take advantage of the fact that she's coming home and that they have that talented piece on their roster. So.
Okay, I bet that's Rebecca Lobo's dog.
I was going to say, I like Rebecca's dog. Let's get in this conversation.
But that is the perfect
free
cue.
agents are puppies. They some big dogs.
No, that is the biggest cue for right now, though, because somebody we have not talked about is a big dog. Dejanay Carrington. Don't be surprised if Dejanay.
There it is. That's why she's a Hall of Famer right there.
On the move.
Yeah, she's a restricted free agent.
Yes,
obviously,
but there's some trades.
Yeah.
Yes.
Okay, so we'll see exactly what happens there. Let's talk a little bit more about the Wings. Rebecca, you want to get on this conversation? I just feel like we should include you in this.
And
what direction should the Wings go if they lose Satu?
Well, obviously, with the number 1 pick, you expect them to get Paige Beckers in the upcoming WNBA draft. It'll be interesting if they are able to move Satu Sabally. You would expect that it would be a 3-team trade and that they would get something really desirable in return. One of the things I want to make sure to mention, though, last year during free agency, the sexiest moves were made by Seattle when they got Skylar Diggins-Smith and Nneka Ogwumike, and by Phoenix when they got Natasha Cloud and Kalia Copper. But the most important and impactful moves was what Minnesota did when they got Alana Smith and Courtney Williams. Those were championship moves. They weren't nearly as sexy, but they helped Minnesota get to the right place, get a couple of foul calls away from winning a WNBA championship. So sometimes as we're really focused on the shiny objects, it's the right fits that become really important. And to go back to Dallas, Paige Becker's there. When you have Arike Ogunbowale, can they get pieces when they trade Satu that can really complement those players and give them a huge jump? It wouldn't be a championship jump, but a huge jump.
Well, look, I think that Dallas is what we're going to be talking about next. When you get married and people go, when are you going to have a baby?
Never done that.
We're doing free agency, and we're talking about the draft next year. And Paige Beckers obviously is the she will be the number 1 pick if the Dallas Wings take her there. But listen, everybody's signing 1-year deals because of the new CBA that's out there.
Yeah.
Well, college players who make 7 figures also have to think about whether or not it is good for them to go into this draft this year, and we're going to be talking about that the rest of this spring.